Good morning, students. So, today again we'll start with our poem, that is Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray. We had already done till line number or stanza number 20. We'll continue this lecture with stanza 21. So, you already know that the elegy is about some village folks who have been buried in the graveyard, that is in the church, and the poet is talking about them, what sort of life they would have been having, what pleasure they enjoyed, what were their ambitions, what sort of people they were. So he in a way is trying to reflect on their lives. Their name there is spelt by the unlettered muse, the place of fame and elegy supply, and many a holy text around she strews, that teach the rustic moralist to die. So, in the earlier stanza, he was talking about the graves that simple, humble graves that have been, or some small monuments that have been created on their graves, and because they were not people who were educated, so the praises or some verses that are written on their graves are also of like people who are not educated. The frail monuments are frail means that they are so fragile, are engraved only with the dead people's name and the years of their birth and death. And even this simple inscription was clearly made by someone who was largely illiterate. There's just a simple knowledge about them is given, their place of birth, their year of death, their name, and this also is maybe written by someone who is largely illiterate or unlettered. So the speaker here uses irony when he says that the inscription was made by a muse. Since the muses were goddesses of poetry, so how could they be unlettered or illiterate? So this is a sort of irony. These simple inscriptions take the place of fame and fancy elegies that are written in the memory of dead people. She here is the muse, which is referred in the previous line. The unlettered muse also adds to the occasional biblical verse, that is the holy text, that inspires country folks to think about death so that they'll be prepared when their time comes. For who to dumb forgetfulness a prey, this pleasing anxious being ever resigned, left the warm precincts of the cheerful day, nor cast one longing lingering look behind. Then now the speaker asks who is going to give up, that who wants to die, who wants to leave behind this life. Who is going to give up means resigned is to give up. Their life, being here means their life. For who to dumb forgetfulness a prey, this pleasing anxious being ever resigns. He says, he questions that who is going to give up their life, which is both pleasing and anxious, or to leave this warm environment of the earth without looking behind at what they leave behind and what are they leaving back in this place, especially someone who, like these villagers, is going to be forgotten when he or she is dead. He knows that I would not be remembered because he has just given his life to the simple daily chores of the life, and he has not been able to do anything further than that. So he already knows that after death I would not be remembered for anything. So he is even more anxious about it. So this metaphor and some more personification is seen here. Being forgotten when you are dead is like being hunted down as the prey of a predator called forgetfulness. It seems that forgetfulness is something, some sort of a predator that will hunt the person who has gone from this world, and he would never be remembered. Finally, there's some alliteration here with the repeated beginning sound of L in longing, lingering, look. So this you can see in the last line. On some fond breast the parting soul relies, some pious drops the closing eye requires, even from the tomb the voice of nature cries, even in our ashes live their wonted fires. So he says that even though they are simple, humble, poor country folks like the villagers in the churchyard, they also depend on their loved ones as they die. Means everyone wants to be remembered, loved as their soul departs from this world. So they also, fond breast means someone who loves them. Parting soul is the person who is dying. Relies is depends. Some pious drops the closing eye requires. Everybody wants some drops of tears to be shed on their death. So even these simple poor country folks like the villagers in this churchyard depend on their loved ones as they die and leave this, or as their soul departs from this world. They need some pious religious friend or neighbor to close their eyes for them as they die, or grieve for them, because it's only natural. It's the voice of nature. Means here nature is personified, and that voice of nature calls out from the grave, and the villagers' accustomed passions, that is wonted fires, live on in their ashes or their remains. For thee who mindful of the unhonored dead dost in these lines their artless tale relate, if chance by lonely contemplation led, some kindred spirit shall inquire thy fate. Haply some hoary-headed swain may say, oft have we seen him at the peep of dawn, brushing with hasty steps the dews away, to meet the sun upon the upland lawn. So we are going through these two stanzas together because one stanza is the continuation, the idea continues to the second stanza also. The same sentence continues across and there's a stanza break, so we'll look at both the stanzas together. The speaker here refers to himself in these lines. He is calling himself thee. The thee word is for the poet himself. Thee and thou were informal or more intimate versions of you in French and Spanish and many other languages that have two versions of you. English used to have a formal and an informal way of saying you, and it makes sense that if the poet is addressing himself by thee. The speaker is saying that he is aware. Mindful means he is aware of the dead people who have not been honored with lots of monuments. So he is memorializing them in these very lines of poetry. In a way, this poem is a sort of memorial for those people who have died. He says that I am aware. So because of this, this poem is like a memorial service for the poor. Then the speaker wonders what would happen if some random kindred spirit who happened to be musing on similar things might ask about the speaker's fate. He answers this question in the next stanza with some more alliteration. Haply some hoary-headed and swain. Some hoary-headed means some grey-haired person. Swain is the farmer. He says, maybe someone will also ask about me when I am not here. Then he thinks that maybe some grey-haired farmer would tell that they had often seen the speaker hurrying through the dew covered grass to watch the sun come up on the meadow lawn. So he is wondering about his own life, that what would happen. Will someone remember me after my death? Then he thinks that maybe someone will from here, some villager from this place will tell about me, that he had seen me moving around over in this place. Thank you. We'll continue with our next lecture, next lines in our next lecture. Thank you.